So I actually had a different intro planned for this video, but in the time of me filming this, Hurricane Idalia just made its way through Florida and Georgia and the Carolinas. And first off, I just want to give my thoughts and all my prayers to those who were affected. But it's also a reminder for us to be prepared in those kind of situations. I'm from Florida, and when hurricanes hit, no matter where it's at, it always hits very close to home to me, emotionally and also physically, because that hurricane only happened maybe like 5 hours away from us. So at any given moment, that storm could have gone this way and we would have been affected. I've been through that before, and I don't want to use that situation to try to sell you on this particular power bank. Like, I don't even give a who you own a power bank with. Just have some way of having power after a hurricane, whether that's a power bank or a gas generator, or even if you have the money, that you have some sort of generator system that's already built into your home. It's always the aftermath of the hurricane that affects us the most. It's usually not during the hurricane, although that can be very dangerous. It's what happens after. It's the cleanup. It's the assessing of the damages. It's not having power for weeks, not having running water for weeks. I mean, no matter where you live, there's calamity that can happen no matter where you're at, and you need to somewhat be prepared. This is like my fourth power bank, and I can't get enough of them because you just never know when you're gonna need more power. And I use all four power banks in many different scenarios. I have the Jackery 240, which I use for just charging small things like cell phones, tablets, things like that. I also have the Bluetti EB55, which is a 500 watt power bank. I now have this, which is the Bluetti 180, and this is a 1800 watt power bank. And then I have the Zero Breeze Elect Hive, which is the 2200 watt power bank that can power up more of the bigger things like fridges and things like that. So when we're going off-road and overlanding, that will usually power up my fridge. But in a situation like if a hurricane hit and we didn't have power, I can use my overlanding fridges to keep our food basically fresh, and then use the power bank to run those fridges. There's a huge overlap between preparedness and overlanding. A lot of the gear that we use for overlanding can easily translate over into being prepared and having the items whenever the grid goes down or whatnot. But today we are going to be talking about this guy, the Bluetti AC180. This is the Bluetti AC180 1800 watt 1152 watt hour power bank, which is definitely large enough to power up some of the bigger items that you might need at camp. This comes in right around 800 bucks, which I think is an awesome deal because normally power banks charge $1 per watt hour. So on an 1152 watt hour power bank, you should be expecting to pay about 1,200 bucks for this thing, considering that this is only 800 bucks for something that gives you 1800 watts, 1152 watt hours. That's a pretty good deal. Now, when you buy this, obviously you get the power bank itself, you get some documentation, you have this registration form that you can fill out and send back to them to register the product. You also get your user manual. Don't throw this away. A lot of good pertinent information on here about the power bank. You also get 3 different kind of cords. You have your 12 volt, which allows you to recharge this back up in the vehicle while it's moving. It only draws about 10 amps, so it's gonna not be quick to charge this back up, but while you're moving, you can at least keep it topped off. You also have an AC charger. Plug this to the side, and then you can plug this into an AC outlet. This also has rapid charging, so if you need to charge it up quicker in a small amount of time, this will allow you to do that. And then you also get a cord for solar, so if you're running solar panels, you can plug this up to that and charge this up via solar. Now just a quick walkthrough around the unit. Starting up here, you have your DC input. So if you need to charge this up in your vehicle with a 12-volt socket, just plug that cord into here and then plug the other end to a 12-volt socket in your vehicle. Below that is the output. Many of the newer power banks started taking this out because I figured a lot of people don't use this anymore, but I like that this one still has that, because I still have a couple of things that I like to plug into here, specifically like tent lights or my awning lights. Right over here you have your power button, and then to the left of that is DC button, and on the right of that is AC button. Use this to turn it on, and then if you want to use the DC outputs, you have to press the DC button, and if you want to use the AC outputs, you press the AC button. Simple enough. Power it up by just holding down the button, and then on one side you have input, on the other side you have output. Right at the top you'll see that right now it's on eco mode, and then you have this fuel gauge type of thing at the top that tells you just how much capacity is left in the power bank. It also gives you a readout, says 100%, and then below that is how many hours you have before this thing goes to empty, and right now it's at 99.9 hours. Now below that you have your DC output. You get one USB-C and 4 USB-A's. Kind of my big gripe is that I wish I had more USB-Cs than USB-A's. Most of the things I have now are USB-C. I mean, I do still have some USB-A stuff, but I would need more USB-Cs in the future, knowing a lot more is converting to USB-C than USB-A. So I wish they would have given 3 of those and 2 of the USB-A's. Over here you have your AC output. You get 4 of them, so anything you need to plug up, you have that right there. Now up at the top you have wireless charging. Any device that you have that supports wireless charging, just place it right on top of here and it will charge it up. Now over on the right side you have your vents. You have a vent on both sides. Make sure that wherever you're storing this, you give ample room for this thing to vent out. Right below you have your AC input. If you're going to charge this thing back up with AC, just plug it up into there and then plug the other end to an AC socket. You also have circuit protection here, and then you also have a grounding terminal there. We'll talk about that later on as well. The handles on these are built in. I like the fact that handles are built in, kind of like my Elec Hive. I don't like power banks that have like a handle that kind of pop out from the top, because those things can easily break. The hinges on those can easily snap. I like that the form factor of this is just a cube. I don't need a power bank that's all sorts of weird different shapes. For example, and I hate to say this, but like the Jackery has a handle built in at the top, and it creates this really weird awkward shape that you can't kind of just maneuver wherever, whereas this, and like my Elec Hive, it's just a cube. You can kind of just Tetris your way into making this thing fit anywhere. All right, let's talk specs. The capacity for the AC180. This is a 1152 watt hour power bank. The battery that's in here is a lithium ion battery. Weight of this, 35.27 pounds, which is actually heavier than all my other power banks. The dimensions is 13.39 inches going this way. It's about 9.72 inches deep and about 12.4 inches high. Charging temperature for this is 32 degrees Fahrenheit to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, or for those of you that don't use Freedom units, 0 degrees Celsius to 40 degrees Celsius. Now for the outputs, starting with the AC, you get 1,800 watts total, 120 volts, 15 amps, and the frequency is 50 to 60 hertz. Now for the DC outputs, starting with the cigarette port, this one is 12 volt, 10 amps, and then for the USB-A, 2 of them are 5 volts, 3 amps, 15 watts total, and the other 2 are 5 volts, 3 amps, 15 watts total as well. Now for the USB-C, you have 5, 9, 12, 15, 20 volts at 3 amps or 20 volts at 5 amp with a built-in e-marker chip. For the wireless charger at the top, that supports 5, 7.5, 10, and 15 watts. Now for the inputs, starting with the DC, that one has a DC 7909 interface, 500 watts, 10 amp max, so it's definitely safe to plug into a 12 volt socket. It's only drawing 10 amps, and the voltage for it is 12 to 50 volts. Now for the AC input, the one that's on the side, 120 volts, 15 amp max current, 50 to 60 hertz frequency, and you get 1440 watt max at 50 degrees to 86 degrees Fahrenheit, or 10 degrees to 30 degrees Celsius. There's nothing on here about solar, but that's because solar will vary depending on how many solar panels you plug into this and how many watts each of those solar panels are. But once you plug those solar panels in, you'll get a readout on here as far as how much this thing is bringing in from that. But honestly, all these specs doesn't really matter, because just like all other batteries, whenever they give you specs for them, it's based off of them testing these in the most optimal conditions. But we all know we don't live in the most optimal conditions, so we're going to test this out in the real world. I'm going to use this to power up a fridge and see how long it'll keep that fridge going. The main reason a lot of people need power banks is to run their fridges, so we'll use a fridge to test this thing out. Alright, so I have my ice cold fridge plugged into the Bluetti AC180 via the AC outlet. The fridge is at about 77 degrees. It's currently drawing about 33 watts of power at 60 hertz. Battery bank is at 100%, and it says here we have about 21.1 hours at this rate. But obviously this will start to go down as this fridge cools, and then it just comes on periodically. Alright, so we're right about at the 6-hour mark, and as of right now, the fridge is at about 36 degrees. It actually had dropped down from the 77 degrees it was at down to about 35 to 37 within like 20 minutes of me plugging this thing in and turning it on. On the power bank side, we are currently drawing 51 watts from that fridge. At this rate, we have about 11.9 hours, well, 11.9 hours left on this power bank. Power bank right now is at 80% capacity. So while we're waiting to see how long this fridge will drain this battery, I figured this would be a good time to go through the app. That's the one thing I don't have in any of my other power banks, so I think that's really awesome. Now, I've never opened this app before. I literally just downloaded this thing right before shooting this segment. So this is my first time going through it as well, and we can kind of learn together on how to set this thing up and pair it together. So first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and download the app. Obviously, there's a QR code in the instructions, and then once you download it, go ahead and open it. You're going to need to set up an account, so let's go ahead and do that. Now, once you've logged in, it's going to ask you to connect to Bluetooth. There you go. Now we're at the home page, so it looks like we need to add a device. So let's go ahead and add that, and that's what it is right here, the AC180. So let's choose that. So as of right now, it's showing it's at 79% power. It's not drawing anything at this moment because the fridge is off. Battery information, it'll tell you, let's see what's on here. It says right now it's on standby, and then battery pack 1. So I guess it tells you whatever battery pack you might be on. Right now AC is what's on, and then you can turn the DC on by doing that. Say okay, and then see, automatically turns the DC on. That's pretty cool. All right, so let's go to settings. Let's see what that does. Up at the top, looks like you can change the name. That's just a really weird name. So let's change that. Baptism AC180. After that, you have user manual. So if you want to take a look at the user manual, well, I guess I can throw this away. Awesome. Share device, I think this allows you to share the device with other people. There's a QR code that pops up. You let them scan it with their phone, and that'll allow them to connect. So for example, my wife can go ahead and monitor this with her phone as well. Next one is homepage display. If you turn that on, I'm guessing that on your homepage, when the screen is locked, that'll tell you what percentage your battery's at and all that, whatever important information you need to know about the battery bank. I can definitely turn that on so I can monitor it without having to open the app. Charging mode, here's what's cool. So charging mode, you get 3. You get standard, you got silent, and you got turbo. So when you're charging this thing up, you can choose standard or you can go silent. And if you go silent, that I think that just means that the fans won't kick on, so it'll be a lot more quieter. But because the fans are not turning on, I'm guessing it's not drawing in as much wattage because it doesn't want to overheat. So it's going to just basically trickle charge this thing little by little, but it is going to be quiet. Turbo, I'm guessing, then it's going to draw in even more wattage, which means that it's going to be louder because the fans have to kick on a lot more often to keep this thing cooled down as it's drawing in that much wattage. Power lifting. Power lifting, let me take a look at what that does. Let's see what this means. I gotta look this up. Powerlifting mode. The powerlifting mode is disabled by default. When enabled, the icon is displayed on the screen. In this mode, the AC180 can run high drain pure resistive loads less than 2700 watts, while its rated output power retains 1800 watts. Now below powerlifting, you have eco mode. So if you click on that, you have AC eco and DC eco, and you can turn those on and off. And if you go to eco power, you can choose basically what eco power you want it to be at. Right now, it's the default is 15 watts, and it also has eco shutdown. So it tells you basically after how many hours it'll shut down. I'm just going to leave it at 15 watts for AC and 5 watts for DC, and then leave it at 4 hours because your devices should be already charged by then, and you don't want to keep this thing running when everything's already charged up. Now below eco, you have firmware upgrade. You can check that to see if there's any upgrades that need to be done, and it looks like there are some upgrades available. So after I stop filming this, I'm going to go ahead and upgrade the firmware. And then you have advanced settings, and it looks like grid self adaptation, and then you have AC output frequency. Right now it's set at 60 hertz, and then you can press factory reset to reset everything back to factory specs. And right at the very bottom you have unbind. So if you want to take this off, or like you're selling it to someone or whatever, you can unbind it and it won't show up on your app anymore, and then they can bind it to their app. I don't know why they used the word unbind. That's such a weird choice of words. Why not just like unpair? But that's the app. Pretty self-explanatory. I like it a lot. It's very simple, easy to navigate. Not a lot of stuff going on here. All right, so we're at the 12-hour mark. Fridge is holding steady at 36 degrees. And on the unit itself, it says we have about 49% capacity left, 7.4 hours at 51, 52 watts, and it does match up on the app. The app says also it's at 49% with a 52 watt draw. All right, so we're at the 24-hour mark. We've got 37 degrees on the fridge, and for the power bank, that is currently at 11%, 1.6 hours left at 58 watt draw. All right, I am calling it. 24 hours later, this thing is down to 10%. Based on how it's performed in this environment, 92 degrees outside with the garage open, I'll probably get another, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 hours out of this thing. Your mileage may vary. It's going to depend on a lot of different factors, such as external temperatures outside, how often are you opening and closing the fridge, and don't forget too that your fridge may not be the only thing that you're plugging into this thing. You might be using this to charge up your laptops, tablets, phones, camera batteries. So it'll definitely depend. Real world, being out on the trail, I can probably get this thing to power up the fridge for 2, maybe 3 days pushing it. Considering that during the day, I'm usually driving around and the fridge is plugged into the vehicle. And then we usually get into camp right around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. And that's when I would switch to this thing. And then we usually leave about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. So if you're looking at 9 to 12 hours of being stationary at camp, then you're looking at maybe 2 or 3 days for this thing to last. And obviously there's other options to keep this thing charged up while you're driving around, like plugging it into the vehicle or using solar and all that good stuff. Now what I love about this thing, on the top of that list, price point. I mean, you're looking at an 1800 watt power bank, 1152 watt hours. If you're looking at it at $1 per watt hour, considering that this is only 800 bucks, it's a really good deal, and it will power up like some beefy things like your fridge. Now a close second is having an app. I mean, that's a game changer, I think, because I can monitor this without having to go and press the button and look. Like, in fact, I was in the house just monitoring the battery, seeing how it's performing, and that's going to come in really handy at camp, because if you're sitting around a fire and you want to see how much more capacity you have left because it's currently powering your fridge, you'll be able to just open your phone and take a look without having to go to your vehicle and turn this thing on and see where it's at. So I think that's a plus. Now, a couple things that I didn't really like. Number one, top of that list is the weight. I mean, this thing is about 35 pounds, whereas my Hive 2200 watt power bank has more capacity, is actually lighter at like 25. So you're looking at a 10-pound difference, and that might not make a difference to you, but this thing is heavy and I don't really want to be lugging this everywhere all the time. It can become a pain to carry this everywhere and putting it, and again, that's weight that you're adding to the vehicle along with all the other cargo you already have. Second thing I didn't like, USB-C ports. There's only one, and I wish there were more, because there are so many things that I have that are USB-C powered, and I'm getting more of what I don't need and less of what I do. I wish it would just be mostly USB-Cs and a couple of USB-As for the other things that we might still need them for. Otherwise, solid battery would be a great addition to your kit if you're looking for a battery bank without having to break the bank. $800, 1800 watt power bank, not bad. Now that we're in the thick of hurricane season, for those of you who live in the South and are prone to getting hurricanes, and even if you're not, always have something, again, as backup in the event that the grid goes down. You want to be able to power up some devices. I don't care what brands you use, just be prepared for you and your family's sake. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you don't smash, charge up that like button, subscribe to our channel, also hit that notification bell so we can let you be aware of videos when they come out. And if it moves you, support us on Patreon. It gives you access to all of our live streams when we do them, and it also gives you access to all of our videos before everyone else. And as always, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Baptism Overland. My name is Asia Sampson, and I will see you next time. No, there's my back. Oh my God.